but you set yourself an ideal, and by gumbo, you achieved
Oh
it.
my God.
George R. Martin, man.
Martin, when you write this?
Billy and Dreg. Fine. I bet them fake titties look good in a shirt from DTmerch.com.
All right, that was
Man,
good.
that was a good one right there. I didn't see that coming right
I
there,
did
did
not
you?
either, because I was about to be like, I don't have no.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Bill, I bet you look good in a shirt, the classic tee with the black classic with the white logo. Oh, put Bill in a beanie with that long, luscious hair. Remember, many ways you can help us out and subscribe. You can do so with your Amazon account. We got that Amazon pay button for you. Put in your username, your password. It's safe. We ain't gonna do nothing with it. And when you press, Billy's like, I don't know about that. But when you press enter, we're gonna do something with it, all right. We're gonna put that toasted goodness. Oh, Kennard, where is it? All over your body. And believe me, Kennard got that body. Right now, I'm eager to see what Martin, the funny book boy himself. I want to see what he thinks about the king of the funny books out there, Stan Lee. Stan Lee, as we all know, Stan Lee, because we talked about this yesterday. Now, if you want to know the discussion that we had yesterday about Stan Lee, you can go look at yesterday's What Up, Son. We had a really good discussion about Stan Lee, passed away yesterday at 95. We did the whole thing talking about our favorite cameos and some of the problems that he was going through right before he passed away. Talked about his legacy a little bit. It's a legacy I want to continue talking about, mainly because it hasn't been 20. I kid you not, it has not been 24 hours before that backlash kicked into effect. The man ain't even cold yet. Less than 20, not even 24 hours later, people started talking shit about this man. Oh, Stan Lee, he stole stuff from people. Stan Lee, he always taking credits for things that he was taking credit for things he didn't even deserve. What about all these other folks out here? Why is Stan Lee the one out here always getting all the love and he's shitting on everybody else? And that's why I'm gonna talk shit against him. Well, that's why I'm here today, because I think while I'm sure that there was a complicated past with this man, and Martin, I'm sure you can elaborate on this. At the same time, I want to make it clear to people exactly why Stan Lee is getting so much credit for the things that he has done and why those things are so important. They're talking about how Stan Lee, he's getting so much praise, and yet somebody else is getting looked over. His partner for years, Jack Kirby. Everybody talking about, well, how come Jack Kirby didn't get this kind of love? Jack Kirby responsible for half these heroes that people love too. What's going on with what's going on with that? How come he ain't getting his long obituaries, news stories, people coming out expressing their love? He just wasn't as big a personality out in the mainstream as Stan Lee was.
Right.
And and I don't know why people don't get that.
They don't want to get it.
They don't know.
It's too fun to be outraged or feel like you know something that other people don't know.
It really is, man. Yeah, exactly. People just want to be mad.
And that is not new especially when it comes to the two of them.
They had disputes. They had fights, but they did still have a mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Jack Kirby at all, and like I said, Jack Kirby had probably as long and great career as Stan Lee, but just in a different area. But I don't think Stan Lee ever denied the talent and the work that Jack Kirby brought into their working relationship.
No, he was never one to say, "What? No, I was the one who did all that."
Yeah, exactly. And Stan Lee was never one to go in and take credit from Jack Kirby for things that he didn't do. There was respect, and he had a lot of respect for the man. Even when people are coming out and trying to, it's such a mess. Even when people are trying to come out and say nice things to defend Stan Lee, they still messing that up today. And I like this guy too. And when I read this, I read it before. I read it before this thing blew up. And I like this guy. And I said, why is Armie Hammer out here causing trouble?
Army Hammer.
Army Hammer, man.
That's your boy too.
What's he doing getting involved in this?
Army Hammer.
He's just mad because he's not in a Marvel movie.
But no, because he was defending Stan Lee.
Okay.
But in the worst way possible.
Oh, no.
He came out and said, "All you guys taking pictures with Stan Lee after he's dead. How dare you take his death and make it all about you?" And I looked at that and I was like, "Oh my God, this is gonna come back on him."
It's about me.
He's a baby. I said, "Why did this boy say this? I like this guy. Why is he out here riling these people up?" And sure enough, it got so bad that Negan had to come in and whoop up on that head. Even when Negan got to come in and talk some sense to you, that's when you know it's bad. Jeffrey Dean Morgan came in. He was one of the biggest ones that come in and said, "You dumbass." He said, "Do you not even see what you just did? And you try to talk shit about other people." I'm looking at this on comicbook.com, and here's the tweet that went out from Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So here's what Army Hammer said. He said, "So touched by all of the celebrities posting pictures of themselves with Stan Lee. No better way to commemorate an absolute legend than putting up a picture of yourself."
Oh,
now that's when Negan said, well, with that Lee, what do we have here?
He was always.
A pretty boy who wants to talk some shit. And this is what Jeffrey Dean Morgan had to come in and say. He said, "Looks like you found a way to use others' ways of mourning in their memories to draw some attention to yourself. He sounded like Negan too. He said, you sound like a real asshat."
Damn.
Jeffrey,
Shots fired.
I know, more like Jeffrey Steen Morgan. Am I right? No, but it's like it was because I knew that. I said, "Man, do you not understand how Stan Lee was a man of the people? How he went out and took pictures with everyone?"
Yeah. It shows how generous he was with his fans, with his time with his fans. He made everybody feel good, and it's a way of just saying like, "Hey, I'm happy I got to meet him before he died."
Yeah, and all these people are putting up pictures of him celebrating that one moment they had with this legend.
Right.
Huge celebrities. That was the guy that everybody wanted to take a picture with. There was nothing wrong with that.
No.
He was going to post it till Army Hammer had put out that tweet.
Till he fucked it up for everybody. Santa Maria, this guy.
What was he thinking?
This ass hot. But what's that?
What was he thinking?
I don't know, man. You know what? He wasn't thinking. Like most people on social media.
I guess
Like
that's
most
good.
people on Twitter, especially.
Fair enough. Good answer. He wasn't thinking.
I said, "What? Leave this man. Just shut up."
He woke up. He was like, "How can I fuck up today?"
It's really one of those moments where you just say, "You know what? Just shut up and look pretty." Just stay away from Twitter. You don't need to be talking today. Not today. Because whatever you got to say is wrong.
I like how Jeffrey D. Morgan was like, "This shall not pass." I got something for his ass.
So you want to talk some shit? One of the biggest things with him that made him who he is that he was an entertainer. Thing about when you look at he was the guy. He was such a great personality on screen. As well as behind the behind the scenes, but on screen, and he just looked cool. Yesterday I was talking about how it looked like he just ready to shoot a porno at any moment.
I was gonna say that.
Like even right now, he's like, "I'm gonna fuck the shit out of Spider-Man." He was a great entertainer, which made him a great salesman. And I'm not saying that in a bad way because, even though he looked like Hugh Hefner, the people even say he was a Hugh Hefner comics at the time, minus all the sex and everything, minus all that ass. Thing is, he was modest. He was not modest. He was not modest at all. But he wasn't an egomaniac either.
Yeah, he was always selling and promoting the product.
Yeah.
Not himself.
No. And and the thing is, he was not modest. He was not an egomaniac. He just told it like it is. If he did something great, he gave credit where credit was due. If somebody else did something great, he gave credit where credit was due. But it never stopped him from saying, "Yeah, we did some good shit. Yeah, we made history." There's there's this interview from Virginia Tech. I remember stumbling on this across this online, back in 1977. swinging a stand. He was
Yeah.
he was in this little studio giving an interview, and I want you to notice here how he is both boastful about the history that he's done, but yet gives credit to somebody else.
Spider-Man.
Look at her. She's like, "Are we on?" She was like, "Huh."
Right away, it started out as a copy, but I said, I'm not going to copy the Justice League. I never can remember it was the Justice League or the Justice Society. It was one of those. We came up with the Fantastic Four, who inevitably did something wrong.
Yeah, and notice that he said, we created these legendary characters. We created this property that became world famous, but at the same time, he wasn't afraid to say, yeah, and I took DC shit too, and just change it around for my own purposes.
I wouldn't even call that bragging what he's doing. He's just coming from an organic place. He's like, look, I wasn't going to copy it. This is what I didn't like about their model, and so I just changed it up, and this is what I did.
And as he said, he was told to do something
Right,
like
he was
that.
told, exactly.
Do something like this.
So,
Yeah.
I'm porno with glasses on.
Yeah, and it's funny too because that set looks so cheap. It looked like he really is about to shoot a porno right now. He was more than a showman. He was that personal touch that made you feel closer to these superpowered people. Mm-hmm. He was the one because he was a normal guy, just like us. I mean, sure, he had more money and whatnot, but he had no superpowers. But he was the dude who knew a bunch of superheroes as friends. Those were his close personal friends, and he said, "Hey, you want to meet him? You want to go to a cool party?" And he was it was like we were hanging out with him and all his friends. Mm-hmm. It's because of his voice and his personality that he put out there. It was a personal touch. It was almost like having this thing that made you closer to these superheroes.
Well, that was what really sold Marvel, and yeah, it was that personal touch. Even before you saw him or met him, just within the comics themselves, it was always, hey, reader, hey, true believer, guess what's coming up next? And Spidey's going to be in this. And then his editorials in the comics, Stan's soapbox. He, personally write a whole big thing that was just as enjoyable to read as a comic book. And everything was, hey, I'm including you in this. We got the Mighty Marvel Club. You're all a part of it.
See, this is what you got to understand. Yes, all these other people contributed, but Stan Lee is the guy that kind of made Marvel what it was and why people love Marvel so much because they felt like they were friends with this guy who was personally introducing you to Spider-Man and the Hulk and the Fantastic Four. And that's what and you know what? And that's what really got me into Marvel because, I mean, I was reading the books before, but I wanted to explore this universe even more back in 1981. When there was a show called The Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And the reason why that was so cool to me is because that voice that you would read in the comics for in the bullpen, or his narration that he would do in the comics, he brought that to the show. The animation, I mean, it was a Saturday morning cartoon. It wasn't even all that great.
It was good for what it was at the time.
At the time, you got to see your superheroes come to life. Animation wasn't even all that great. It was pretty limited. But the thing is that when Stan Lee came in and narrated, he kept your ass captivated. He put some drama on
drama,
there. Yeah, the way he would, the way he narrated and the way he would make it seem just so intense, you were just glued to the screen waiting to see what would happen next.
Is transforming into the one human being on Earth who alone has the power to change the fantastic molecules of his body.
You would watch that and your ass wouldn't blink for the next 25 minutes. You just be sitting up there frozen because Stan Lee knew how to tell a story. That was officially his first cameo. Now, it would be in cartoon form, but on that show, he came in and did a quick walk-on.
Oh, great! She took us out for dinner. She must have lost the scent.
Now,
why does it look sleazier there than
I know. He looked like an old pedophile right there. Like he's about to touch that dog. You want to yell at that dog, run!
His thing was to take, hey, characters have powers, but they're also people. So yeah, the Fantastic Four, sure they have powers, but the way they got them, one guy, he's a rock monster, and he's upset all the time, and their family who's bickering with each other, half the time.
And that's what I'm saying. They would act like a real family. They would fight.
Yeah.
But then when they had to work together, they worked together.
Oh yeah. They made a great team. Spider-Man, great power, great responsibility, but he's still a teenager who is not popular in school, who's poor, and his aunt is always at death's door.
And even as a man, he still couldn't get his shit together. I said yesterday, one of the main reasons, because we talked about this, how he added a human touch to these characters by making them flawed. One of the things about Spider-Man being relatable is that, okay, yeah, I got responsibilities just like him, except I'm kind of better than he is. He might have superpowers, but I pay my bills on time.
Yeah, exactly.
I ain't been evicted. He gave them human flaws. I can relate to them. But then there were the other things that were people who felt like outsiders. They saw a little bit themselves in the characters. It was not always great to be a superhero, or not always great to have superpowers.
It was often not.
The Hulk, he didn't want that shit.
He didn't want that.
No, he's like, I'm indestructible, but I can't control it.
Right.
Stan Lee, when people say Stan Lee was a god, he really was like God. God don't give you nothing without a little give and take. God, he's always a catch.
Yep.
And Thor was the Norse god of thunder, but because he was not always worthy and didn't have his shit together, by day he was a cripple.
Yep.
Oh, really?
And
He was Dr. Don Blake, who was lame. He had
and that's the other
cane.
thing. Handicapped people could relate to him. Daredevil had great powers, but he couldn't see shit.
Yeah. He was blind.
He was blind. He had to use some ears. When Stan Lee was doing these things, no one wanted to talk about race issues in comics. And that's why he was able to bring it in, because while some people saw the X-Men as, oh, well, these guys are just outcasts because people are scared of them because they got powers. Other black people looking at this and they're like, shit, that's us. I mean, our power is blackness, but and it's really ain't a power. But it was the equivalent of like the civil rights struggle.
Sure. And it's funny how the idea really came about. It didn't start out with a noble cause. It's just he wanted to create some superheroes, and he was like, I'm sick of coming up with origins. They were born with their powers.
Shit, good enough, right? It didn't start out with that noble noble cause of making this a civil rights issue. I mean, they embraced it when people start making the comparisons, but that's important culturally because when a lot of people related to these characters, and a lot of people who weren't nerds and geeks and who didn't read comics openly, they still saw themselves in those characters, and those characters actually
that's why they've endured for so long.
And exactly. It was the progressiveness of Marvel that has contributed to comics being mainstream today. Mm-hmm. I mean, shit, man. Because look, back in the day, man, people were reading comics and they didn't want to admit it.
Yeah, it's progressive of Marvel that kept you getting your ass beat.
Oh no, I got my ass beat for reading comics by people who read comics. They just didn't want to admit it. That's why his death, Martin, takes on such importance today.
Sure.
His progressiveness lent himself to making a statement about racism 50 years ago. And it was done in Stan's soapbox. If you go in and read it, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Look at it online. But if you go in and read it, it's eerie, man, how it can almost be speaking to the hatred that is so prominent and coming out today because of one motherfucker out there. But
yeah, hate crimes have been up 17% this year.
17%.
Jesus Christ.
He says, let's lay it right on the line. You can even hear him saying it. Let's lay it right on the line.
On the line.
Bigotry and racism are among the deadliest social ills plaguing the world today. He hates people he's never seen, people he's never known, with equal intensity, with equal venom. You can keep going on with that, but do you hear what he's addressing? Racism, xenophobia, and sexism. All this stuff that's bubbling up more than ever today.
And he's right on the fucking money.
He's right on it. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It's fucking... You said eerie. It is eerie, yeah. It's
This is 50 years, man.
Jesus
and we're
Christ.
coming full circle back around to this.
Oh, yeah.
That goddamn dude who wrote comic books got to like set people straight, who ain't even alive right now. Right. It brought a culture together. I don't know if he ever would have been able to foresee that a character that was created decades ago would bring a culture together, which span different generations. You know, I never thought that I would be bonding with my mother in a movie theater watching a Marvel movie. Oh, both of us. My mom geeking out over Black Panther more than me. It was Stan Lee's progressiveness, the voice that he had against bigotry, that he did in front of the camera and spoke out against. That again is something that made Marvel so much different from other people and made Stan Lee stand out from other people within the organization. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And y'all talking about, well, shit, what did he do? That's what he did, bitch. Shit, I'm making myself mad. I'm getting mad because people want to talk shit, and this, you know, and it's kind of obvious why we are celebrating this guy. It was really great to see him before he passed away, see his creations done right.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, and when I say done right,
because for so many decades, it was just, hey, you take what you get.
Yep. A lot of people don't live long enough to see technology get to a point where you get to see your creations taken to a level that you probably thought you would never see possible. Stan Lee not only got to see his characters brought to the screen, but also to see his storytelling brought to life on the big screen, to see his universe, his comics,
right,
the stories, all on the screen. He didn't even think that was possible to other people, much less the stuff that he contributed to. I couldn't help but feel happy for this guy, even on the small screen. You know, Netflix, they had some hit and misses, but that last season of Daredevil kicked ass, man. You know, and can you imagine him even on the small screen seeing how his heroes are done right? Because Stan Lee, he couldn't control what was being sold off to people and whatnot.
Right, because everybody was thinking, you know, Stan was a face, so he's in charge. This is why he took a lot of shit over Jack Kirby, because it was Frank Miller and the publisher of the Comics Journal, Gary Groth, who were leading the charge. It was when Frank Miller, when he came to prominence, he was all about creators' rights. And yeah, every creator was for that. Every artist, they were like, artists got screwed back in the day. We got to take our shit back. We got to have control, not have the two big companies. Because look what they did to Siegel and Schuster, who created Superman. Look how they got screwed. And then and look how Jack Kirby got screwed. He had to sign all these art away. Most of it he didn't get back.
And Frank Miller said, "Not me."
Yeah, but they led a big charge, a big anti-Marvel charge with the whole. They need to give Kirby his credit. They need to give him money. They owe him money, and that evolved into Marvel's a bad guy. Stan Lee's a bad guy. He's Marvel. And at that time, it was like, well, if you know anything, you know that Stan Lee's not running shit over there no more.
Yeah,
and even at that time, y'all are talking about. He wasn't the publisher. It was a standard contract. It sucked. But it seems wrong to blame him for it. Yeah.
Right. Let me ask you this, though. When you said losing rights and stuff, is the name Roger Corman coming up anytime soon?
Yes, and I was going to say that led to a dark period, man, because when I'm sure Stan Lee was looking back and saying, "Damn, when you said that y'all going to buy these characters, I know you're going to abuse them." It's like selling off a dog to an abusive owner, man, because it was a dark period because people just made movies to either like keep the rights to those characters or make a quick buck, or ride the wave of another movie that was doing big to keep the rights to something. Like Roger Corman made a 1994 Fantastic Four movie. That shit looked like it was made in somebody's garage.
It's
Yeah,
it's clobbering.
That movie was a joke, and it was only on the underground for years. You couldn't find it. I got a copy of it because my buddy in L.A. he was one who dubbed the master copy, and he stole one for himself and made one for me. And I had a big viewing party.
Captain America was another one. That one was so bad.
That one was the worst.
1990. What's fun? The only thing that's funny is that Fantastic Four was made in 1994 and it looks worse than the movie that was made in 1990. But the reason why Captain America was made because they had the rights and they rushed it out saying, "Shit, we got to catch we got to ride the wave of Batman because Batman came out in 1989. They even had the same kind of marketing that Batman had."
For the rest of the world, he's just codenamed Captain America.
And the power to save millions.
Catching a frisbee like a dog. You see?
It always bothered me that on his mask, the ear is fake.
Yeah.
We have an experimental rocket ready to fire at a target somewhere in the United States.
Only he could.
While Marvel was having trouble because they sold their properties off, it was one company out there doing Stan Lee and the rest of Marvel a little bit of justice, man, and that was Fox.
Oh yeah,
you know,
with the Saturday morning cartoons.
Saturday morning cartoons and the movies, man. Like that movie from 2000.
Oh yeah.
On the big screen.
No, you're right.
They actually did a great job of keeping those characters pretty authentic with the budgets they deserve.
Right.
I don't even want to do them like that, but yeah. Have you ever seen Stripperella, man?
No, I know of it. I know of it. I never.
That thing was horrible. It was during that time when they were trying to do adult
cartoons
animation
everywhere.
Adult animation was everywhere. Oh Jesus! Oh, and they were proud of that shit too. I'm looking at this right now. That is a shame. The first thing that's up on the screen, Stan Lee presents. Okay, yeah, like we said, the man wasn't perfect. That thing was it was a huge step backwards for him. That was Pamela Anderson doing the voice,
Anderson,
right?
Yeah. It was the two of them who went in on that.
Singing?
No, it's not her singing. But
that's her stripping.
yeah.
Well, you take your clothes off. This is animated. I wonder, man. I'm not gonna say that this is exactly something, but there was that letter. I mean, you look at today. You might not have certain things that you take for granted today because of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and some other people at Marvel. It could be argued without those guys, you might not have Game of Thrones. The guy who was really into Marvel Comics at the time was George R.R. Martin.
Oh, sure.
You remember that letter that he sent to Jack Kirby and Stan Lee?
No, I know he sent him a letter.
Yeah, he.
One day I will bury you all.
I will tie you to a stake and burn you alive.
And by the way, thanks.
And George R.R. Martin was straight up comic book guy from The Simpsons. It says here, Dear Stan and Jack, Fantastic Four number 17 was greater than great. Even now I sit in awe of it, trying to do the impossible, that is, describe it. Ergo, as one of the great, that really is comic book guy. Ergo, best letter ever. Ergo, as one of the greatest of all comics. And what other comic mag could you see things like a hero falling down a manhole? Oh, no. Well, cartoons did it all the time. Yeah. Mr. Magoo did it all the time.
Goofy too.
You really made him change his tune. That letter was a far cry from the one printed in Fantastic Four number 9.
God
this
damn.
dude.
Oh, man.
Brilliant. You were just about the world's worst mag when you started, but you set yourself an ideal, and by gumbo, you achieved it.
Oh my God.
George R.R. Martin, man.
Martin, when you write this?
Hey, man, I don't need no ride from you. You can kiss my ass.
Worth it.
Watch, Billy gonna go out there and put your tires on flat.
Now you do.
They said, looking at like Mavis Creed, the guy who wrote Game of Thrones, a nerd. The hell you say?
He looks like he's been pursuing Moby Dick.
I know. From his typewriter.
Any favorite cameos, Martin? Or what your favorite cameo?
Well, I like one of his early ones in the first Iron Man movie.
Remember me?
Sure don't.
Oh,
Jesus.
I forgot how that's.
Damn, that's a bad cameo, man. He looked like he didn't. It looked like what you gonna say?
Oh, I liked it because he called him Hef, which is who he used to dress like in the 70s.
It just looked like Stan Lee really was trying to pick up hoes, and Robert Downey Jr. just kind of distracted him.
He looked nasty as hell. That chick, didn't he?
Yeah, who was that? Who's fucking with me? This is probably one of the weirdest cameos that he's done because it wasn't for a Marvel movie, and it wasn't even for a superhero movie.
Is that the Princess Diaries?
That's the Princess Diaries, man.
Because I see
Julie Andrews.
It was the same Mary Poppins, but yeah, Julie Andrews there.
Yeah, that was a weird one, man. I've seen the Princess Diaries. You have too,
Is it the first one or the second one?
I don't remember.
It might be the second one.
I bet it's the second one. I bet it is.
Yeah, because I don't remember that at all.
No, me either.
That was horrible. By the way.
In fact, I wonder if Stan Lee just edited himself into that. But I have a cameo and everything.
Yeah, he warned onto the set. Free comic books for everybody. Let me in this movie.
Yeah, well, he's here. Shit, so, like I said, this is another part. Please go check out the first part that we did yesterday. Where, believe it or not, we actually said a whole lot of different things in what we did today. You got a person like Stan Lee. There's a lot of things to talk about. When a man lived this long and had this much of an influence on your life and many others, which again spans decades. So like I always say, I don't look at this as something to be really sad about. You got to go sometime. You know, even Grim Reaper's like, God damn, man, come on. I mean, what more can you do?
I mean, that's the thing why everybody's sad, and I wasn't sad because I was like, he's 95 years old.
It's a good run, man.
And he's been having health issues lately. You can't act like you weren't prepared, or you should have been.
A lot. It was getting to the point where when they said, "Guess who died today?" People, Stan Lee.
Yeah.
You know, not even out. You know, people kind of bracing themselves. Nah, man, be happy. Be happy. I mean, we all got to go sometime. And there's many ways that people go in this world. Some of the unassuming or horrible ways, or just going out with nothing. This guy went out with everything.
Yeah.
You know, he went out
and then some.
A lot of money and a huge legacy. Mm-hmm. So. I cried yesterday at the end of it. Yeah, I showed this one last thing at the end, and it got to me, man. Yeah. I should have played that clip. Me and Carlos were sitting up here crying, man. Aww. It was the perfect way to see Stan Lee going off with his famous last word, and people cheering him on to the next world.
I must have absolute silence. Excelsior! Oh.
And me and Carlos. But there you go, man. I mean, that guy's amazing. I dare to ask one person whose life was not somehow touched by it.